Alright, you fuckers. You're forgetting this is the end of the world. It's time to start acting like it. It's happening right now. If you're masturbating, wrap it up, make it a good one. It's the last masturbation you'll ever have.
I actively don't plan anything for After X Day. Been doing it since '96. And it's like, yeah, if there's any chance, I'm not going to screw it up by not buying into this.
Okay, folks, it's almost 7:15 in the morning, July 5th, 1998. Friends, it's not about when we get everything we want. What it's really about, like every other religion, it's about when the non-believers get what they deserve. No, seriously now, and I do mean seriously, you're going to get whatever you want. The important thing is to really know what you want. If your imagination is so limited that all you can think of is a better version of your crappy apartment, that's exactly what you'll get. And it won't seem that different after 7 a.m.
Bob is teaching me things about disappointment, except the disappointment in Bob is sweeter than the disappointment in life.
10 seconds.
Life's disappointments are brutal. Bob's are part of a joke that once you finally get over the butt hurt, you start laughing at it.
2, 1, fuck them if they can take a shot! For 30 years, almost none of us ever broke character. It threatened sometimes that the character might take over. Once again, we find ourselves in that age-old traditional situation. 7 a.m. or something like that, something like July 5th, something like 1998, something like the planet Earth. We don't have any idea where or when we are, and that is the point of the whole thing. X Day could happen any second. It may not happen this year. There have been times when we were so good at keeping a straight face that we could have had another Scientology. We love fooling people, but we don't want to fool anybody that way.
The young people of our generation have no moral norm for their actions today. They want somebody to stand up and say, what is right and what is wrong? How far can I go?
Nearly moment by moment, young people are bombarded by distorted visual images that are saturating their minds and, yes, sabotaging their futures.
Regardless of what you're looking at.
In the early 80s, we were outliers. We were outside the norm. People who had grown up in the 50s were just trying to come out of all of the weird stuff that had been heaped on us.
Once a person is perverted, it is practically impossible for that person to adjust to normal attitudes.
The 60s were still echoing, but it turned into the 80s, and that whole spirit got flipped on its head.
You are being deceived. You're being brainwashed every day by the devil.
Everything's getting too square again.
The normalcy was oppressive to me.
I grew up in a cultural vacuum, a small conservative Illinois town.
I kind of prided myself on being the outsider in high school, you know, the guy that's so weird. You know, I wouldn't talk to him.
There is a conspiracy of unimaginable proportions working solely to rob you of your very abnormality.
And I'm here to tell you tonight,
the conspiracy is them. They're the ones that want to hold us down. They're the ones in control.
People always tell us how to talk, how to walk.
It was the war of the weirdos against the straights.
To enjoy the feeling of being with the in crowd is so seductive.
Marion was rejected today. If she felt accepted, the whole pattern of her life would be different.
We were grasping for this crazy religion to help us see the light.
It's the Church of the SubGenius. Their prophet's name is Bob.
Dobbs came to town to set you free.
It was just this outpouring of expressing ourselves and how wrong we thought the direction of society was. I thought it was hilarious.
We're probably the only cult that admits that we're ripping them off every day and teaching them to enjoy it.
There must be discipline. It's wrong. It's sin.
Just say no. If Jim Jones could talk 900 people into killing themselves, we could talk 900 people into sending us $1.
There's only one guaranteed way you can have peace.
The world will end in 1998.
God said judgment is going to come.
Repent, quit your job, slut.
The idea of being able to get away from this shit stew of the world, it's a dream.
For those who've abandoned hope, we'll restore hope and we'll welcome them into a great national crusade to make America great again.
Great again.
Great again. Great again.
I grew up as a little white boy in America in the 1950s in a middle-class home, so I have nothing to complain about. I feel like anybody who grew up in that situation has it better than most medieval kings, because we had aspirin and some people had air conditioning.
I'm one of those guys that was fortunate to have like an idyllic childhood. My family was as normal as they could get. I was forced to go to a fairly fundamental church for the first 18 years of my life. So that probably had some effect on why I rebelled so strongly once I got away from my folks.
I can't say that I'm rebelling against my religious upbringing or anything like that because I didn't really have one. I was raised basically secular humanist scientist. This is Fort Worth, Texas. I was surrounded by Baptists. I really did feel like a weirdo. Kids would go, hey, Doug, where's your family go to church? I didn't even know the name of a single church. I'd really be stuck. I'd say things like,
I was very much into comic books and any kind of alternate publications and music like Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart and people that were not mainstream.
I did not feel like my classmates. Despite my very fun childhood, I had terrible teenage years. I had to hang around the theater department in order to meet girls. That's how I met my first wife, in fact.
I was discouraged from participating in art. Art was not a place where you could make money. You need to get a real type job. So I worked for AT&T, and that's kind of like where my insight to the conspiracy took place.
My sister-in-law, she said, I have these friends, Philo and Cookie, that I met. You should meet them. They've just moved to Dallas. I said, I don't want to meet any friends. I don't need friends. So no, you might like this guy. He collects comic books and he likes Captain Beefheart. I thought, what? Both comic books and Captain Beefheart?
We just became great friends. He was the liberal. I was the conservative. But we were both so disaffected with politics, we didn't believe any of it was true.
What we really had in common was collecting well, what we might call kook pamphlets or extremist literature of religious or political kinds. You know, you'd go to a laundromat and there would be The Watchtower from Jehovah's Witnesses, or a comic book from Chick Publications, you know, This Is Your Life. We loved the range of ridiculous things that human beings can convince themselves of.
If I went out and made my daily quota, the first thing I'd do is go over and wake up Reverend Stang. Say, let's get up, let's go do something, let's have some fun.
We were trolls before they had that term. The internet hadn't been invented, but CB radios had. And Philo, because he had a real job, had a CB radio. But we didn't use it to help the world. We used it to puzzle and confuse strangers. We would get on and say things like, men of Earth.
Men of Earth, we are speaking to you from 50 million light years away in space. Come in, Pink Boy.
Well, there was these two guys that were doing it back to us. They were trolling us, and they were saying, shut up, Pink Boy, shut up, Pink Boy. And we interpreted that as, oh, the aliens are finally talking to us. And that was what they had to say. The next thing we knew, Pink Boys were everybody we didn't like. Bosses, rude waiters, nasty clerks in stores. We were surrounded by dumbasses. We knew that we were dumbasses too, but we felt like it was a matter of degrees.
People that we didn't want to have anything to do with, the pinks and the mediocritans, the techno-blorps.
Part of me was in terror of all of that, but there was also the terrible stress of having to, you know, make the living and not lose your soul. At some point, one of us said something like, why aren't we rich yet? We've got all these skills and things. And Philo goes, well, I guess we're not geniuses. We're really just SubGenius. And in my head, everything fell together like a puzzle box, a Rubik's Cube that suddenly formed itself. A weird fringe cult for weirdos, specifically for weirdos. That was the Church of the SubGenius.
When we did the first pamphlet, it was really a labor of love, the pasting up, the cutting.
We tied together every fringe belief you could think of. It was like getting all your toys, your dinosaur toys and your army man toys and your cowboy and Indian toys, putting them all together on the floor and having this whole world that was a conglomerate of all the cool stuff ever. It was so much fun.
We had this sort of an icon we could blame everything on, the conspiracy of normalcy.
There's Bob, the conspiracy, and Slack. You know, if you're gonna have a cult, you have to have a cult leader. Well, that's Bob.
We need to put a face to that entity.
We can't afford artwork. No, this clip art, the public domain stuff, it's old, nobody cares about it.
As we flipped through the catalog, there was that face.
We both instantly knew that's Bob. After a couple of months, we had assembled SubGenius pamphlet number 1. When the printing bill came in on the first pamphlet, it was $60. My wife got very upset with that. You're gonna have to send these to publishers. We can't afford that kind of thing. You need to try to turn it into a book or something. Publishers, wow, okay. I got Writer's Digest and got the addresses of every publisher in the United States and mailed the pamphlet to them. We got 150 rejection slips back. The rest of them didn't say anything.
I was living in San Francisco, working with my comic partner Gilbert Shelton at Ripoff Press. I wandered into the publisher's office, a fellow named Fred, and he opened some envelope up and pulled out the initial pamphlet. He grumbled something about it and threw it in the trash can next to his desk. To his complete irritation, I pulled it out and just started laughing at it. It was the funniest thing I've ever read. It was kind of like, how refreshing. I think my first act was to like get an envelope and put all the cash I had in my wallet in it and wrote a note saying, send me more pamphlets.
The first pamphlet, pamphlet number 1, is a significant document in many ways. It is the vector by which many people have had their most significant introduction to the Church of the SubGenius.
Doug sent the pamphlet to KPFA, and so I saw that and really loved it. And for years, since I was a kid, I've been putting stuff in the mail to strangers. So they became new strangers. They started mailing stuff back. It was like the internet, really, but instead of 1,000 people, it was 10 or 15 of us. It was really fun.
It was such a seminal little pamphlet. It was almost like a test of your mindset. Like, were you a subgenius or not? If you got it, you were a subgenius.
It really spoke to me. It had this whole thing about how the goal is slack and the motto is fuck them if they can't take a joke.
The central doctrine, more than anything else in the Church of the SubGenius, of course, is this slack thing.
It's probably one of the hardest things to describe in the church, you know.
We don't describe it because by definition, slack is really different for each person.
Slack is what everybody wants. It's what we still want.
This idea of, you know, a place where people can live, where they don't feel harried by just the multiple things that one feels harried by all the time.
You know when you don't have it, that's for sure.
It was like finding like-minded people, if you could truly say any of us had minds to be alike. You know, somebody with the same type of cynical perspective, same reference points.
They were so layered in everything. It was part pop culture, part science, part religion. So it appealed to me a great deal, and I did do just as it said. I sent $1 with the letter.
What's that say? Send $1? Well, even I've got $1, so I sent off $1, and I got this little pamphlet, and that was where the crushing loneliness started to get chipped away.
I was doing a magazine called Famous Potatoes, using a lot of ads and clip art stuff. And it was a fine artist, Robert Williams, who said, hey, you ought to send some stuff off to the Church of the SubGenius. They're doing a bunch of clip art stuff like you do. So I sent stuff off, and I think it arrived just after Stang's birthday or something, and he just flipped out over the Famous Potatoes, and he sent me all the pack, you know, and I didn't have to pay.
There was a flyer on a phone pole that said, get ready for a pretty tough future. What scientists are afraid to tell us. And then there was a picture of Bob. I showed it to all my pals, and they were just like, yeah, yeah. So we didn't send him $1, we sent him $100 from Little Rock. And we got the first pamphlet back. That just bobbed us all up immediately.
It was a little bit of a sense that there are other people interested in these things. They might be far away, and they might exist from post office box to post office box, but they are out there.
It was intoxicating to think that there was somewhere where you didn't have to fit in, where people were crazy in the good way. So I sent in my $10 and I became a subgenius.
We got the first few orders coming in. Remember, we were so excited, and then all of a sudden this...
Terrified, more like it. It was like, what? Somebody actually sent us $10? Now we're gonna have to do that.
Now we actually had to start working and doing stuff.
Hey, Reverend Stang, another gun.
We said, you've got a religion, now you've got to have the tent revivals. You know, you can't just say you have a religion. You have to have this gathering of the faithful.
It was a sad day for mankind. It was a sad day for mankind when man started sticking with his head and walking on his feet. So kind of, boy, I get back up. Oh, yes, man. I can feel an emanation. I can feel an eye just burning into my eye. I can feel a man staring at me and grinning at me and scratching his eyebrows. I can feel that man saying he wants to testify the power.
A devival is a subgenius revival.
Yeah.
Didn't sound good to say revival, you know. Devival sounds a lot better. It actually sounds kind of like devil.
They were a way for us to act as if we were rock and roll stars or preachers or something.
Thank you, Bob, for cleansing my memory.
I was the one who was supposed to get up on stage and do stuff, and I actually had terrible stage fright. I wasn't interested in that at all. But a Dallas character who later ended up calling himself Reverend Buck Naked, the SubGenius thing really clicked with him.
The worst crime is serving the conspiracy. And the penalty?
He was ready to get up on stage and preach.
The penalty is worse than having your gonads cut off. The penalty is worse than having your head cut off.
Eventually, I didn't really like the way Buck did it,
And the rest of them are wrong, and you're the only one that's right, and that's how you're supposed to feel. Because you got.
so I started doing it.
Before we start the services, we should have just a moment of sacred noise.
Thanks to the SubGenius thing, I discovered I wasn't alone. There were weirdos all over the place.
There were very normal people who just talked nutty stuff about the Church of the SubGenius, which made them very easy to, to relate to and get along with.
I remember seeing all these bands and stuff, and I thought, these guys are loaded, these guys are drunk. Then I saw Doctors for Bob perform, and I thought, these guys are clinically insane.
Anti-music is it's a concept of unfettered expression musically and sonically to try to create this sound that trained hands can't do. You have to go totally on instinct, and that's what we did with Doctors for Bob.
It was kind of this Looney Tunes fraternity, and you had to kind of enjoy guys to be a part of it.
The way that I view the Church of the SubGenius is that, in a way, it is the patriarchy strained through a cheesecloth.
It was a boys' club, and I was attracted to it because I wanted to meet the boys.
It is finally taking itself by the hair and turning itself inside out and looking at the world with fresh eyes. And that's why I think it's such a special place for special people doing special things, having special feelings, and we hope to come.
I think it was this way of saying, it's them and not you. Don't you worry if the world or the conspiracy is getting you down. You come stand by me because you're one of ours.
The conspiracy's major effort is to take your slack away and to sell you a false version of it, which they manufacture.
Well, I'm afraid we all discovered the conspiracy probably our first day of school, when the other kids made fun of you for using the wrong color crayon, or you're not doing it right.
It was important that we encapsulate everybody's best enemy into something that could be easily distilled into like one thing. Something that people could say, yeah, I understand that. We're all victims of that,
Anything that bothers you is the conspiracy. It's a little bit the thing that assassinates presidents from book depository windows. It's a little bit the suppressed saucer technology that is owned by the European Union. But it's also just when it's too hot on the bus.
In 1953, Jehovah 1, the alien space god, informed Bob Dobbs that there was this conspiracy of normal people robbing the slack of the SubGeniuses for centuries, but that on July 5th, 1998, at precisely 7 a.m., the men from Planet X would come, rupture up the dues-paying, believing SubGeniuses, and give them the power to wreak revenge on all the normals. Next thing you know, you got the doctrine for an entire religion.
Oh, yes, Bob can set free the winos. He can set free the prisoners. Do we have any more testimonials from the crowd?
I found the image of Bob's head in a bedpan, and ever since, it's just been Bob all the way.
Saved by the image of Bob in a bedpan.
Our tendency is to just let everybody throw in, so we don't really have any rules.
I was once a degenerate, but Bob saved me.
We encouraged people to form their own schism, join the church and send us money, but immediately rebel against it.
Well, there's always a split in the church, and if there wasn't, we'd create some, because you can't have a church without schisms. And the more schisms in a cult, the better.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to inject this campground with some real hate. Yes! I would like to bring to you the great Papa Joe Mama.
One of the major magnets of religion isn't the common love of something, it's the common hatred of something. That's what brings everybody together. So I just wanted to kind of offer that sort of alter ego, the sort of anti-Bob, if you will, in the Church of SubGenius.
There are two distinct branches in the Church of the SubGenius. The highbrow evangelical branch, led by Ivan Stang and his philosophical followers.
Some of the subgeniuses were looking at me as kind of the do-gooder. I was a little too easy on the normals. I didn't really want to destroy the whole world. I just wanted to loot it, get all the good comic books. Well, other people really do hate the normals.
The evangelicals and the Holocaustals represent two sides of the church. Now, the evangelicals believe that all the pinks need to be enslaved and can still serve a purpose after the final judgment in which Earth is liberated from the chains of pink and conspiracy rule. Now, the Holocaustals, we're kind of a more traditional fundamentalist, if you will. We believe that, you do need to eliminate and exterminate all the normals.
Not everyone in the Church of the SubGenius gets along with one another, because it's the group for people who can't join groups. I've often tried to explain to people about Church of the SubGenius. These are going to be very smart, talented people, but somewhere along the line, they've got a personality problem that keeps them from joining in and being sociable and popular and normal.
I like to go to the lake and like to roller skate, go walking around.
This character named Doug Wellman, using the handle Puzzling Evidence, he was way ahead of us in collaging found sound.
Doug Wellman had been making these audio collage tapes with sound effects and improvised humor, as it were.
It was like a network of people that traded cassette tapes.
You'd get the tape and you'd listen to the tape and you'd immediately start a tape back to the friend. And it was just such a great way to communicate.
Wouldn't you like revenge on these mediocritans, these pink boys, these normals who have made normality the norm?
Doug was in Berkeley and I was in San Francisco, and we turned on KPFA and heard ourselves on the radio, which was a little moment of discontinuity, because how could we be on the radio when we were here listening to it? And it turned out this fellow had gotten a hold of one of Doug's tapes and was just filling his show out with it. We contacted him and invited ourselves onto his show. And at some point it became the Hour of Slack, which, was a great name because the show is actually 90 minutes long.
Welcome to SubGenius Radio Ministry, Hour of Slack.
And this gave us a body of cassette tapes that made us sound a little more developed than we really were.
Nobody had met each other to that point. No real events or anything. It was all just a male media network. There were finally enough people who were curious about each other and becoming actual friends that we wanted to meet. So we decided we were going to have a convention in Dallas.
Have you ever wondered about your neighbors? Maybe wondered about the weird thumps and bumps or chants emanating from their apartment? Well, they may be followers of Bob. That's the fastest growing cult here in the Southwest.
Somehow or another, Channel 4 News got wind of this SubGenius thing.
Ivan was really resistant at first.
I was married to a school teacher, We didn't want to get my wife in trouble or get Philo fired. Plus, Philo's parents didn't know anything about this whole SubGenius thing. They were very religious.
I didn't ever want to do anything that was going to embarrass them in public. Even though I had this really strong need to rebel, I wanted to kind of do it privately.
The church is so omnipervasive that we could not possibly get into the dogma in any less than 3 or 4 hours.
I thought maybe, you know, a secret identity is a good thing.
It's the Church of the SubGenius, and they're holding a revival.
My name's Sterno Dox from Little Rock, Arkansas. This is puzzling evidence representative Doug Wellman, Oakland, California.
I'm Palmer Reedies from the Wise Foundation in San Francisco.
Deep in the heart of San Francisco.
People came from all over the country.
I'm from Houston, and I came to learn more about Bob.
Bob is like a super salesman. He can sell you anything, and I bought it.
I just kept hearing the word Bob, Bob, Bob. It would wake me up in the middle of the night. I'd wake up doing jumping jacks. I wouldn't know why.
Devo was in town, and Mark Mothersbaugh came by.
It was only by chance that I started receiving mail from the SubGenius Foundation, and I realized who Bob was.
2 of the guys from Devo are at the convention. I thought, this is really cool.
Everything was completely like a parallel universe to what Devo had been doing back in Akron and now was trying to foist upon the world. This was big time, major, grade A proof positive that it had been going on somewhere else.
There's a good Bob and there is a bad Bob. There's a big, tall Bob, and there's a little, short Bob. There's a kitchen Bob and a living room Bob.
Anti-gravity Bob.
And where is Bob leading them?
When you first look at it, some people go, oh, I get it. This is a takeoff on weird cults and conspiracies. Then they look a little bit deeper, and if they're really an attuned sort of person, then they realize, oh, I get it. This really is a weird cult with cosmic wisdom and dogma that I've been needing all my life. And that's when they're, usually when they write their first check.
Kelly Lane, Channel 4 News, Dallas.
As the song says, different strokes for different folks.
Doug's been standing out in the sun too long, I think.
I lost my ass on that. It was a disastrous for me personally. It hurt my job and probably my marriage.
He was struggling to make money. And I have to admit, for me, that was probably the time in my life when I had the least amount of trouble earning an income.
I was in the perfect position of being desperate enough to do low-budget promotion for a weird cult.
Stark Fist, 7,000 of them. That's a lot of weird shit.
It certainly is.
I kicked in a few bucks now and then, but for the most part, he was the guy that was shelling out his money.
Now, you should make a film about slave labor.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. I was kidnapped in my native country of Africa, walking down the street. And these white people came up and told me to get over here to America and fold these damn envelopes.
It was like a carrot was being dangled in front of me personally all the time. This thing could be big.
We were aware that we were sort of influencing other people, and that was exciting. You didn't know who, but you could kind of tell other people, like, what's that Bob thing you're doing?
I kind of wish I had found the Church of the SubGenius when I was a teenager living in East Texas, a little town where the state prison was. And, you know, it was nothing but Baptist churches everywhere, which my family didn't go to, so we were sort of the oddballs.
What do you do to earn a living?
You mean work? To hell with the kind of work you have to do to earn a living. All it does is fill the bellies of the pigs who exploit us.
They look at you and say, oh, you're not getting anything done, you're a bum, you're a slacker, you're disengaged, you know, all the put-downs that people throw at people who seem to be living their own lives, who kind of following their own passions.
What is this, some kind of psychic TV type parallelism?
Well, we all know the psychic powers of the televised image, but we need to capitalize on it and make it work for us instead of us working for it.
That's a threat, you know, that's a threat to the conspiracy. That's a threat to the mediocrity machine that is the modern capitalist world.
Other creative people started coming into the church.
There was a guy who owned a record store in Amherst, Massachusetts. I think he's the one that told me about the SubGenius. I was told at one point that I was the only person who had paid his dues to the SubGenius every single time they asked. The effect they had on David Byrne, the effect they had on the residents, the effect they had on Paul Rubens, even people who didn't know were building on SubGenius tropes and sensibilities.
It was very flattering. Some of these people were like our heroes, and so to be recognized by your heroes, it's a real ego boost, you know. We actually got big heads and stuff.
My sister-in-law, she'd moved to New York and was in the publishing business. She went to a picnic with a bunch of other people in the publishing business, and a young man named Tim McGinnis, who was a brand new editor at McGraw-Hill, found this smudged pamphlet on the floor of her car. He goes, "Where'd this come from?" She goes, "Oh, it's my crazy brother-in-law. He and his buddy did this." He goes, "I want to get in touch with him and tell him to get an agent." Next thing we knew, Simon & Schuster, McGraw-Hill, and Macmillan were all bidding on the book of the SubGenius, which caused the asking price to go up to $20,000. That was enough to pay Paul Mavrides and John Hagenbrenner to do professional design on it.
Doug brought in hand-scrawled manuscripts and you know, packets of clip art and stuff that he wanted included. So, you know, I'd take a chapter and I'd paste it up, I'd generate some original material.
John's style was perfect because it kind of matched the clip art.
When McGraw-Hill first released it, some places we could find it in the religion section, and I thought that was a huge win. We got a contract for a book, we got it in the stores, and it's in the religion section instead of the comedy section. It's not next to Doonesbury, it's next to the Bible and stuff.
People go, "Man, I barely made it through high school, but I stumbled upon your book and I realized I'm not the only one."
I got that book, I read it beginning to end, I absorbed that book, I adored that book, I loved that book. They kept me with, I get this, I get this, I get this, I understand it, this is directly from my heart. What the fuck are they talking about? I have no idea what this is.
This is the word of Almighty Bob. It is the roadmap. There is no other book like this book. Word like this word.
It was these older, wiser miscreants letting us know that indeed all of these human-made organizational systems are as flawed as you suspect because they're made by us.
This was the age of Jim Jones and all kinds of other vampires and psychic parasites out there using religion to establish control of a segment of a confused and desperate population. And there's no shortage of people like that for reasons good and bad and real and imagined.
It's fascinating to me to look at religious experience, to look at cults, to look at us and them, and all this stuff that I passionately disavow. And then saying to me, which is what the SubGenius did, no, we know you don't believe in any of this stuff. We know that us and them is wrong, but we're going to worship Bob Dobbs, and we're all a congregation. And there's the pinks out there, and there's us in here, and we hate them, and we love us. And wouldn't that be fun for a little while?
Slack is a gift to the gods. The Baptist Church did not save you. The Catholic Church did not save you. The Unification Church did not save you. The Jewish synagogue did not save you. The Church of the SubGenius did not save you. But it was Bob who walked those hot pavements.
We actually are a religion, you know, that seems like an art piece, that seems like a religion, that seems like performance art, that seems like a joke, that seems like a religion.
Simply because we're involved in something that is funny, we don't believe that for that reason we should be taken any less seriously.
We started getting invited to things like art museums. They thought it was performance art.
Ivan Stang was approached by a fellow in San Francisco who wanted to put on a SubGenius party in San Francisco. And so we pictured some storefront or a loft or something with 100 people and went, yeah, we'll do that. And we came back to the second meeting and Tom was all excited. He had gone out and rented a 900-seat theater for 2 nights.
San Francisco tonight is the location of the first international SubGenius World Survival Crusade.
TV stations picked up on the show.
It all began with the book of the SubGenius and the church's deity, Bob Dobbs.
I was preparing tacos one day for my children, and
now
the
Bob.
face appeared, and it's Bob.
The Night of Slack show in San Francisco in 1984 was the first time anybody had put any money into a SubGenius show, and flew several people from Dallas and other cities into San Francisco. And there was even a paid stage manager. There were people building sets just for that show.
About half the people here will have a great time. The rest of them will probably run for the exits.
The one thing none of us were at that point, and still aren't, are professionals. And I knew that nobody had ever been in front of an audience as big as the one we were hopefully going to draw.
I remember Friday night going out around the corner of the Victoria Theater, and the line went out up to Mission and around the corner. I almost threw up because I thought, we're not showmen. These people are paying $7.50.
It looked like it was going to be a disaster. As people were coming in, we had a galvanized tub of evil-looking Kool-Aid.
Some people would come over and they would take it eagerly, the Dixie cups, just like they did in Jonestown, and they would drink it, and they would come over and say, how long till I get off? And they thought it was like
Kool-Aid,
you know,
like
acid
Kool-Aid,
Kool-Aid,
right.
you know, and you know, it was like, oh, about 20 minutes. You know? And then,
Of course, some people were very nervous. The real question was, is this cyanide or LSD? We made sure it was like non-sweetened so we wouldn't kill any diabetics.
It was great. It was really the first event where a lot of people, you know, got together and say, hey, we're all SubGeniuses, and rubbing elbows.
The Night of Slack ran for 2 nights and was surprisingly successful.
It was the first show that Bob Dobbs himself ever showed up at. We were not expecting that at all. He walked out on stage, and the puzzling evidence, Doug Wellman runs out and shoots him with a handgun right in front of everybody.
Oh my God, Bob was killed that night. It was so sad.
We were coming from the airport, and I got to thinking, if you want to sell a religion, you have to kill the deity. That's how you do it. So I shot Bob thinking the thing would just take off.
The audience went berserk. But the funny thing was, the cops didn't care. Nobody cared. Afterwards, people were having drinks. The band was dancing on the corpse of J.R. Bob Dobbs.
it was this chance to just, you know, sing and dance and be crazy. It was really, 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 really fun.
Science does not remove the terror of the gods. We can't do much about those evil gods from the other side of the cosmos. But enough of this. You don't want to hear about this. Who is the right-hand man of Bob? Who sits on the right-hand side of Bob? None other than the Reverend Ivan Stang.
I'm not here to talk about the bleeding head of Arnold Palmer.
One of the things that that we like to talk about was how the Church of the SubGenius would allow you to control your own time.
Now, can we have the house lights up a little bit?
We decided to have our producer be our plant in the audience.
There's a main doctrine of the church called time control. Many people don't know. Would you take it? It's a nice watch. All right.
And then before he presumably could be stopped, Ivan put the watch down on the concrete block and not just smashed the watch, but broke the concrete block into pieces.
You've got to be willing to kill everything in your previous life.
And then what happened was the unexpected. We were going to move on to the next thing, but people in the audience suddenly ran up to us and started taking their watches off and throwing them on stage. Some of them were really nice watches, but the audience demanded that we smash them all. Doug had to sit up there and smashing one after another. So there it was. The audience was ready to take it way beyond what we were doing.
I thought, this thing goes farther than I ever imagined.
We had to run for the exits, but only in order to get you this report on time tonight. However, if you're the kind of person who likes to pull the wool over your own eyes, church is in session again tomorrow at 8 p.m.
That was an amazing evening. And also I met my first crazy SubGenius. This was the first person I ran into who took it all the wrong way. He came up to me after that second show and he was livid. The people in Dallas that did this thing, and Bob, when they find out you're just making a Sonny and Cher comedy show out of it, they're gonna kill you. This is terrible. Look in this book here. It says, stop what you're doing right now. This is serious. This is not a fan club. This is not a joke. And I said, dude, I wrote all that stuff. Me and Philo got high one night and we wrote all this crap. Give me a break. It really shook me up.
It was a little bit scary. We realized some crazy people are attracted to this. You know, the ones that are like, oh, where's Bob? Where's the real Bob?
I think what starts off like a joke, a few, kind of believers who want their life to have a little more meaning than it does, or they feel it does. And then they get a little too gung-ho, they want to adhere a little too much. They start believing a little too much, and then here we go.
You are playing with fire. And the idea of taking fire and doing what the SubGenius did, which is setting off fireworks, it's really beautiful. It's really fun. And every second of that, just a little bit of gasoline, and it'll tear your face off.
There are religions that were originally intended to be jokes, and then they turned into gangs, into mafias.
I'm here to offer you an opportunity to know the truth so that if you can connect with it, then you might survive.
It's kind of horrifying moment when we realized that, we could probably pick up 300 people randomly from anywhere who would pledge their lives to us if we asked them to.
I suspect that some of the people who call themselves SubGenius were actually replacing their childhood religion with this. And that wasn't my worldview, but when I saw people do that, it was a little scary.
I guess I was angry at everyone. I'd been treated pretty shitty my entire life by folks. Their message appealed to me.
The traditional exchange is that you take responsibility for them. They want you to tell them what to do. And this was the kind of power we didn't want. It was the exact opposite of what we were aiming for, which was to remove people from that kind of a hook.
There are people who really want to join this cult and want it to be everything it says it is, and then when they find out that it's not anything it says it is, they get really mad.
You've heard our phrase, fuck them if they can't take a joke. This is important to us.
Just when you think you might get a handle on, oh, it's a collaborative network of artists all over the country. That's all it is. Oh, no, that's not what it is. Oh, it's really a secretly sort of a subversive organization. No, it's not really that. It's just a bunch of drunk guys in Dallas trying to freak people out.
You either got the joke or you didn't. And you got the joke instantly, or you didn't.
Occasionally, people will call us out on that whole fuck them if they can't take a joke thing. It's like, well, that just excuses everything. No, it's just funny.
When was the last time you gave a straight answer?
Well, these are all
We don't care whether they get the joke or not. Half of them can't.
We're trying to make you laugh, but also maybe shock you a little bit with our irreverence. And you may think it's funny, we hope you do. But if you don't, you shouldn't punish us, because we are trying to deliver medicine of a sort. And if you can't take the joke, then please go fuck yourself.
It began in the heart of the Bible Belt in Dallas, Texas, but its membership is spreading across the nation.
Their prophet's name is Bob, and their followers are legion.
Everybody in every mass media liked Church of the SubGenius because it was this crazy thing that they could just inject into their own stream. In the absence of the internet, it was kind of a meme for media.
People, 4,000 of them so far, and more every day, have already joined up. Suddenly the joke has become serious.
At first it was a joke, but there was something much deeper and more life-affirming than I'd even realized.
Y'all are out to put down outrageous cult groups. What does this mean? No, this is an outrageous cult group.
The church was meant to never be mass marketable. We never really wanted to have a lot of followers.
Basically, I was a very lonely weirdo in a small Massachusetts town. I finally got a boyfriend who was a member of the church, and he showed me the pamphlets, and I said, this is it.
They imparted into me the values that have got me where I am today.
We got this attention, a lot of attention, and I started to fear that this thing's going to get too big.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Dragging your butt through the day, selling body and soul to a bunch of bland normals? There is a simple answer, dear friend.
I feel like I'm part of something now. Yeah, I feel like I'm finally being represented by something.
The next president of the United States of Writers, Mr. Bob Dobbs.
You were voted by Time Magazine as the fraud of the century. You get any flack from folks from mainstream religion?
Not nearly enough.
There was a little wave of people going, oh, they're corporate now, they're huge, they're sold out, they're pink now. Well, not really.
Oh, we got Will at just the right time, counting checks.
Huge wad of cash.
And here we go again.
Like any other prophet, Bob preaches about the end of the world. Only his predictions are just a little different.
The men from Planet X will arrive to rupture the true believers of Jesus up into the escape vessels of the sex goddesses.
Why do you do this?
We offer eternal salvation or triple your money back.
Triple your money.
Because the world's gonna end, that's what I'm asking you. Did you have a prophecy of doom here for us? The world will end for those who deserve it. All right. Those who wait. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yes,
all right.
we are.
So basically, here's your deal. For $30, you don't die at the end of the world.
Lord, I mean, this is the fulcrum event of human history. This is when we finally get our history back in our own hands. What an app.
It's time to join the SubGenius revolution!
The countdown has begun. It's like Christmas, you know? Santa's coming. Santa's coming real soon, and we've got the shortwave. You can tune in and hear Santa delivering his little gifts of death and destruction to the
That X Day, you always see all sorts of different people, and they all have this kind of common sense of humor, a warped sense of humor, a dark sense of humor. And I find dark sense of humor to be the most fascinating type of sense of humor because it's taboo. You could talk about all these taboo subjects and make jokes about things that polite company would find extremely distasteful.
Find out if he's really Jewish!
Make him Jewish if he's not.
It was cool as shit. I was a socially awkward person, and suddenly, you know, after a couple of sermons, I could go to half the towns on the East Coast, and people would open their doors to me, buy me dinner.
About a week ago, I had a vision of 7 o'clock coming, and Reverend Stang getting up on stage and making some kind of lame excuse why the saucers didn't come, and some bent dumbass out in the audience just putting a bullet in me.
We're missing Jesus and Sting. Perhaps there are some amongst us that are worried that if nothing shows up in 20 minutes, they're gonna get themselves beat to a bloody pulp. What? It's a white limo pulling up. It is a white limousine.
Hail the limousine!
Of course, there's tremendous feeling of anticipation. 20 years ago, I thought 1998 was a million years off. Jeez, it's really coming. This is really happening.
This is the original handwritten note in J.R. Bob Dobbs' own hand that says, "The world ends July 5th, 7 a.m., 1998.
All right!
This is the original paper touched by Bob, my friends.
It's been difficult to be patient, but I knew that if I just persevered, I'd be able to say goodbye from above, from the saucers.
Gentlemen, we have 30 seconds.
Here's this joke that I've been telling myself and other people for over half my life.
13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Suck up if they can't take a job!
And then the saucers didn't show up.
At one time, this date was comfortably far in the future, but it has turned out that the pleasure saucers of the sex goddesses did not descend on that occasion to lift us all off into universes of slag.
Everybody was looking around at each other.
He's a charlatan! That fucking charlatan, you've been lying to us all these years! There ain't no Bob Dobbs, it's just a fucking doll! It's a fucking dummy! I just did what Bob told me!
I had a real philosophical problem with the X Day thing, and I still have a hard time remembering the date, because in any religion, if you have an end-of-the-world date, I think it should be written into the bylaws that that date has to happen long after you, the person issuing the date, is dead. You don't put it just a few years later.
We never really expected the church to go to 1998. Back in 1981, we set 98 out there because it was still way out there.
We tried to warn him, children. He wouldn't listen. You can't take all the money, all the girls, and all the slack, and never have to pay it back. We're gonna need a good lubricant, aren't we, children?
I guess, to be honest, I'd have to say that I never really expected any flying saucers. To be honest, a lot of this stuff is really, really stupid. But I guess a lot of people need something really stupid in their lives to give it meaning.
I don't know. It's still a pretty beautiful world we've got here. And Bob is still a very important part of my life and always will be.
There was some sense that now what?
The decade has been marked by strong growth, the lowest unemployment in a generation, and yet remarkably little inflation.
Some think it's a boom without end.
I was about to give up on the church. The thing was 10, 15 years old, and people were starting to get tired of it, and things weren't quite as terrifying as they are now.
As freer trade flourished this decade, the internet evolved into a commercial phenomenon.
Then the internet came along.
People can tune into it 24 hours a day.
Suddenly, we could reach those fringe people that weren't going to run into it in a bookstore.
But there's the loss of you have to know a guy.
In the 80s, there was a cost to knowing about them. Now, you can meet people and signal who you are in quicker and more efficient ways. Perhaps, with less depth.
The internet did so much to kill so much old ways of doing things. I think it makes it a lot harder now to make a big splash.
As a medium, it flattens everything out like TV used to do, so that an inconsequential event is the same as a horrendous calamity or a staggering triumph of humanity. And the people exposed to it no longer can distinguish between factual things and fantasies and trite.
Good evening, everyone. The reaction of so many people today was, oh no, not again. Another high school, Columbine High in Littleton, Colorado, this time on the edge of Denver. It has been a horror.
Police have identified the gunmen as Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. They apparently belong to a clique of outcasts called the Trenchcoat Mafia.
You have any explanations for this stuff?
A lot of it's the feeling of being an outsider, feeling disempowered.
You have middle-class kids that are alienated and angry. Then we've always had alienated kids. But, these kids become real powerful because they get linked together via the internet. And the sad thing is that this may not be the end.
Joe's next in Tallahassee. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Ray. This is all part of that Church of the SubGenius thing, which is a big deal about, exterminating the normals and killing the pinks. And now we see the ultimate tuition of that, don't we?
Father Joe Mama, not one to be accused of extra good taste, he decided to promote our upcoming Boston show in a kind of a reverse way.
Another one of my little functions in the Church of SubGenius is that of agent provocateur, the face that makes the outside world think that the Church of SubGenius is very dangerous.
Joe, you obviously know a lot about this cult, and it sounds horrifying by your description.
They're having a revival this weekend in Boston, and the bodies aren't even cold in the graves.
And then the host says, well, I always heard the Church of the SubGenius was a joke. Well, see, that's the thing. They pawn it off as a joke so people don't take it seriously.
That was over the top. Sure, you want to find the media event that you can go get attention from, but that's bad taste.
I didn't really appreciate that. But I'm generally not going to run around censoring people or telling people what they can or can't say.
Somebody in Boston City Council did take us seriously, and they managed to get the venue to shut down and not allow us to do the revival.
The Cambridge Baptist Church heard about it and came to our rescue and said, you can do your revival at our church. Then they started getting bomb threats.
We had basically perform outside the venue in some park or something like that. And Friday had a chance to basically put me on trial for this questionable humor. And the whole time, even though Friday and I were good friends and I wasn't worried about what she would do, the audience kind of took it a lot more seriously.
The choice is yours, my friends. Do you merely want to enslave the normals, or do you want to have the options to kill them dead on X Day?
Like this one!
You were wondering, did they know that this was a joke?
There have been many situations where people got the wrong idea about Church of the SubGenius. Of course, we want them to, so we asked for it, but it has backfired a few times.
There actually were serious cult deprogrammers who had added Church of the SubGenius to their watch lists of cults to watch out for and warn people about.
This Church of the SubGenius hates a lot of things. They hate the right things. Sometimes they make fun of the wrong things.
I drop character now because there have been so many crazies. It's important for me not to leave behind another Scientology or Mormonism.
I don't know that they really got the message, you know, that the real message is think for yourself, be your own leader.
The idea is not in restraint, it's in confronting the dark things, finding the things that hurt us and tear us apart and pulling the fangs out of them, making them into a fucking joke. Because that's the whole premise of the church, is fuck them if they can't take a joke.
This just in, you were looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. The plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence.
The view from my apartment was the World Trade Center.
Watching all of this, I wasn't sure that I should be doing a television show because for 20 years we've been in the city making fun of everything, making fun of the city. To come to this circumstance that is so desperately sad, I don't trust my judgment in matters like this.
Like I was thinking the other day that you can figure out how bad a person you are by how soon after September 11th you masturbated, like how long you waited.
I don't like political correctness in any of its forms. I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to say it. Not funny at all.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Time was changing, and we could feel it.
I kind of fear that this may be the end of the Church of the SubGenius soon, just because we're not going to be able to make fun of things that hurt people.
President Bush finds himself enjoying huge public support.
Either you're with us, either you love freedom, or you're with the enemy.
It was getting kind of serious and disturbing.
Yetis and simpletons, we have a lot of fun here at the Institute, but unfortunately, the dish has hit the fan. Reverend Mary Magdalene has had her child taken from her for no greater crime than her membership in the Church of the SubGenius and her participation in X-Day drills.
Because of pictures on the internet, the family court judge in this little town in New York State took the little boy away from the mom because she was a subgenius.
Why don't you head to your favorite web browser and type in subgenius.com/maghelp.
They got the kid back, not because of sanity on the part of the judges. It was because the biological father screwed up so very badly. But for 2 years, we were in the news.
I just thought, you know, if I'm associated with something where they can take away my kids, I don't want my name anywhere on it. And I think that's a reminder about who we are today, where you get punished for who you're associated with.
You must be ready to unleash a shitload of fire and brimstone, death, bullets, lead, guns.
For a while, I was feeling a bit morally culpable about telling a group of people who are attracted to an organization that is targeted towards awkward and marginalized and sometimes mentally ill people, and standing up in front of them like some big pumped up superhero screaming and yelling about how they should live a life of hate.
A lot of the energy that was there was from I won't say we were pissed off or mad or angry, but maybe we were a little bit angry. Angry young men railing against the system a little bit through humor.
Because we hate you!
But I think you can't sustain that level for that long, and I think the people get tired and want something new after a while.
I took a lot of the zaniness and the absurdity, and that actually was very helpful to have and to kind of have in your hip pocket, as you went through life. But it got a little too far out for me.
I had an epiphany. I realized that the conspiracy that had stolen my slack for 50 years of my life was me. I had to lay off the hate part of it. Like anything, Bob is best in reasonable, sensible doses. You do not want to drink the whole pitcher of Kool-Aid. You just want to drink a small cup. I don't really want to destroy humanity. I don't even care if the saucers come or not.
I took a short break when I was transferred to California. I was actually being career advanced in the company I was working for. They thought I was doing a great job. So I just followed it. I couldn't be as strong in the church as I wanted to be and having as much fun with it as I did,
The world never did know about churches of SubGenius. We never were that big. It is kind of obscure. That keeps it special. If everybody knew about it, it would be normal.
We were just too lazy. We didn't want to be responsible for our own cult members. We just wanted to tap them on the forehead and say, wake up. And of course, some people you have to hit with a sledgehammer. And even then, that doesn't do the trick. Or you can get them to wake for a second or two, and then they doze off again as soon as they see a cat picture on the internet.
Today's secret ingredient is
How am I doing? Am I doing okay? I'm president. Hey, I'm president. Can you believe it?
Donald Trump's probably the most SubGenius world leader there's ever been. He's completely caught up in his own world, does what he wants, makes up his own reality.
I'm not going to give you a question. Can you stay categorical? You are fake news.
Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts.
Facts and lies have no meaning to him. SubGenius, but not in a good way.
Trump stakes. Where are the stakes? Do we have stakes? We've been friends for a long time.
We're living in a world that's upside down. Trump is the perfect example now of a world turned upside down. He's the Joker.
This is a special year. Our country is doing great.
We've got surreal, unbelievable, shocking, psychedelic covered with reality right now.
It's not a good place for any party to end up with a cult-like situation.
I mean, Bob Dobbs is not in any way weirder than Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump wins.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
It's very effective to slice the world up and to pit everyone against each other. It's an effective means for power.
The country of Mexico is killing us. The crime and the gangs and the drugs.
Build that wall! Build that wall! Build that wall!
We're torn SubGeniuses because, of course, a good portion of our viewpoint is that the conspiracy is out of control. In fact, to our horror, each passing day, the world seems more and more SubGenius.
I've got highly effective, all-natural weight loss aids.
The great story here is this vast right-wing conspiracy.
There are many people that don't agree with that birth certificate.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab. He is not
Everybody is in their own private Idaho. Everybody's in their own bubble, and all they do is go into a feedback loop where they can get things to reaffirm what they already think.
This administration is trying to fool you into believing that the news the White House doesn't really like, well, isn't news.
3 million illegals voted.
Where are you getting your information?
The Soviet Union has a worldwide disinformation network.
They go to media sites that incite them, that make them paranoid and worried and fretful about the future.
They can't control the amount of rapes that are going on. Just because they're refugees doesn't mean they're fucking rapists.
They're racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic.
I am no racist.
You're voting for Donald Trump.
None of them are interested in breaking out of the loop and realizing, oh, I've been duped, I've been programmed.
Trump derangement syndrome. Hatred of Donald Trump so intense that it impairs people's judgment.
Like if you quit being real humans and thinking for yourselves, it's over.
This is your country.
I don't know how you carve out a place for that kind of playful us and them in a place where the news is filling so many of those roles. That being said, I also couldn't have thought of the SubGenius in 1978. So obviously, they're better at this than I am.
There's always going to be a conspiracy. It can morph, it can change, and it can evolve, and so can the Church of the SubGenius.
We'll never fix the government. Like, we'll never get it to where everyone is happy. There will always be acrimony, and so we desperately need comedy.
Well, I think the best thing we can do is spread our message and hope that it is useful in the coming crisis, which is descending on the planet and the human world that inhabits it.
For the last 20 years, the only thing I had to do to make my half the mortgage payments is keep selling SubGenius ministerships. And it occurred to me, wait a minute, this isn't a bad gig at all. Once a month, I have to sit here and assemble these things, maybe spend half an hour a day taking them to the post office. That's not bad. People are still obviously getting a lot out of it. Just last week, I went to the post office and there was this envelope there, postage due. I had to fork out $2.45 just to find out what was in this letter, and it had no return address on it. The postal guy said, well, I could just throw it away. I went, no, it's probably a joke, but it better be funny. I got home and opened it up. It had $1,000 in $20 bills in there, just out of the blue. I immediately took half of it to a sick person that I know who cried with gratitude. It's like, no, we're not crazy to keep doing this. It really does come along at the right time for some people. Palmer! What happened to Philo?
He's hiding.
Oh, well, you guys look awful, but a lot better than I expected. Praise Bob. Welcome to Austin.
This is sort of like a booze quest. Uh-oh, another human blockade. Look, there's something. There's a mermaid woman, a mer woman.
It's you once you get your shirt off, honey.
Oh. I thought it was for
You
real.
first.
This is just a
I'll bet you
sad-
if you take your
this is just
clothes
a
off,
sad-
everybody here will follow you.
This is just a
Seriously,
sad
man.
joke.
Do it.
No,
If
no,
you
no.
took your clothes off, and I'll
I'm not
bet
a
you
leader.
anything, this is
I'm
true.
not a leader. I'm just a fast follower.
If you were to do that,
I'm the second guy
she'd be next. To me, it's always been play. You go to a SubGenius show, they're not waving their arms in anger. They might be pretending to, but that's the main thing you get is laughter. And we're still just playing. This is Philo.
I'm
Philo.
Ivan.
Tony, this is Reverend Stang.
Yeah, I'm a reverend.
We're cult leaders. What we really are, and our real job is to be cult leaders.
There you go. These will take you like a week and a half to read. It's called Church of the SubGenius. If you're not a genius, you probably qualify.
Let me know. Is this like a doctor?
If you feel different and you feel oppressed by society's imposition of normalcy on you, you don't have to be that way. You could be the person that you want to be. We know that we think for ourselves, and that's more important than you thinking like me.
Test. It was the night 62 million assholes scraped rat feces into their exposed skull cavities with a rusty butter knife. Everyone agreed that change was needed to make America great again, and it didn't much matter that we'd soon be having our urethras bored out with a high-speed electric drill, at least until the Ku Klux Klan settled in and got comfortable over at the Justice Department. Every week when the baboons came down from Oatmeal Ridge, they'd all circle around the plasma TV to watch Fox and Friends. Now that the judicial branch was well stocked with white nationalists, they didn't have to worry so much about the colored folk or the multi-dicked Mexican rape demons. Best of all, there'd still be plenty of sports to watch, and everyone loved all the choices at the Applebee's salad bar. The end. Now it's time for you kids to go to bed. Nighty-night.
5, 4, 3, 2.
It's bubbling.
Bubbling evidence?
Yes.
I think it's bubbling evidence, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what the name of the show is.
It's puddling effluent.
Questionable judgment. Oh, yeah,
I
piddling
think it's
influence.
questionable judgment.
Yes, just
Questionable judgment. That's for sure. That's the description. That's the abstract of the show.
Right. Bishop Joey is here with us.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Tonight on the show.
Well, Bishop Joey, what is your church's
Most
version
of us wear
slack?
clothes.
Our version of slack, we do pre-indulgences. I mean, you can pay to do a sin later on.
We've done that. We already did that. Our church did that long ago with an all-inclusive divine excuse. That's the first thing we gave them. You just need an excuse that excuses you for anything that may have happened or might happen at any time in the future.
Is it true what they say about Bob? That when you have Bob, life's no prob. He'll give you slack and more sex than you can hack. Oh, life's a bowl of cherries with Bob Dobbs. Is it true what they say about Bob? That when you have Bob, life's no prob. If you want drugs, then he will give you gobs. Oh, life's a bowl of cherries with Bob Dobbs. Is it true what they say about Bob? That when you have Bob, life's no prob. Send $1 and a letter and you'll feel oh so much better. Life's a bowl of cherries with, and life's a bowl of cherries with, oh, life's a bowl of cherries with Bob Dobbs.